The note was taped to the front desk when I arrived for my first night shift. It read, "Don't check in room 6 after midnight. Don't answer the lobby phone after 3 a.m. And whatever you do, never go into the laundry room after sunrise." I laughed at first. Now I don't sleep without the lights on. He started the night I broke the first rule. He came in just after midnight, soaked from the rain, his suitcase dripping a trail behind him across the lobby floor. I glanced at the wall clock, 12:17 a.m. I remembered the note Daryl had left on my first shift, "Don't check in room 6 after midnight." But rules felt like superstition at the time. Old motel legends. Ghost stories to scare the newbies. "Got any vacancy?" the man asked. His voice was flat but polite. He looked completely ordinary, business casual, mid-40s, short dark hair, glasses. He didn't seem dangerous. Just tired. I hesitated. Every other room was either full or had a busted heater. Except room 6. The key hung alone on the rack, dusty and untouched. I reached for it, told myself it was just a stupid rule, and handed it over. "Second door on the left," I said. "Breakfast is at 6. If the coffee machine works." He gave a tight smile, took the key, and disappeared into the hallway. That was the last time I saw him. By morning, room 6 was empty. Not just vacant, clean. Spotless. Too clean. The kind of clean that doesn't make sense in an old roadside motel where even the fresh sheets smell like mildew. The bed was made, the air smelled of bleach, and the suitcase trail had vanished completely. No sign of the man, no name in the guest log, no payment record. Just silence. I checked the cameras. The footage showed the man walking in, speaking to me, and walking down the hallway, then static. From 12:18 a.m. to 6 a.m., the feed was corrupted, flickering white noise like an old VHS tape chewed by a magnet. At 6:01 a.m., the feed came back on, showing me pouring coffee and pretending nothing was wrong. I told Daryl. He didn't even blink. Just chewed his gum and stared out the window like I'd told him it might rain later. "So now you know," he said, like this was a rite of passage. "You broke a rule. It cost you a guest. Don't make the same mistake twice." "But where did he go?" I asked. He didn't answer. That was the first time I noticed how wrong the motel really was. I began noticing little things, details I had ignored before. Like how room SIX's door never stayed closed unless it was locked from the outside. Or how the hallway lights always flickered when I walked past that door. Or how guests never parked near that room. Even the cleaning lady, an old woman named Marta who spoke only Polish, would skip it entirely. When I asked her about it, she crossed herself and walked away. Later that night, I swore I heard noises from the room, scratching, faint breathing, and something heavier, like dragging. I stood outside the door for what felt like hours, trying to build up the courage to knock. I couldn't. Instead, I started reading the guest logs more closely. Room 6 hadn't had a guest since February 2003. That was over 20 years ago. I found a dusty maintenance log in the filing cabinet that said, "Closed for health hazard, mold contamination." Yet somehow the room still showed up in the master key list. Still functioned. Still looked perfectly clean. It was like the room never aged. One night, a teenage couple asked for the cheapest room available. I had to fight the urge to offer room 6. Not because I wanted to harm them, but because part of me was curious what would happen if they stayed there. That part of me scared me more than the room itself. I began dreaming about room 6. Nightmares mostly. I saw the man again, the one I had checked in. Only this time he was outside the motel, standing just beyond the tree line, soaking wet and staring at my window. Not moving. Just watching. When I'd wake up, the front lobby window would have condensation on the inside, as if someone had been breathing against it. I started writing the rules down in a notebook, adding my own. Rule number 4. Never even think about room 6. Might be listening. But it was too late. I was already in too deep. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye. Shadows ducking behind vending machines, reflections in the windows that didn't match reality. The TV in the manager's office turned itself on one night, playing static at full volume. When I turned it off, the screen showed a brief flash of the guest from room 6. His face pale, eyes black, mouth open in a scream. The motel had begun to change. Or maybe I had. Even the guests noticed. A woman told me her child kept crying through the night, saying there was a man with a long neck, looking through the cracks in the walls. A trucker asked me if we had an issue with raccoons because something had been scratching under the floorboards, following him room to room. But Daryl? Still calm. Still chewing gum. Still acting like none of this was new. Eventually I stopped asking questions. I stopped trying to explain what was happening to anyone. That's when I realized something truly horrifying. The rules weren't meant to protect the motel from us. They were meant to protect us from the motel. And once you break one, the motel starts watching you back. The first time the phone rang at 3:01 a.m., I ignored it. It sat there on the front desk, an old rotary-style landline with a cracked receiver and a long, coiled cord. No caller ID. No reason for it to ring at that hour. I stared at it for a while, waiting for it to stop. When it finally did, the silence felt heavier than the ringing itself. The second night it rang again. Same time. 3:01 a.m. Longer this time, 12 rings exactly. I didn't pick up. But something about the sound stuck with me. It wasn't just loud, it was wrong. Too sharp. Too hollow. Like it wasn't meant to be heard in this world. By the third night, curiosity got the better of me. My hand hovered over the receiver for a few seconds, hesitating. I didn't even realize my fingers were shaking until I picked it up. Hello? At first, nothing. Just a soft crackle of static, like a weak signal from a distant radio station. I was about to hang up when a voice broke through, dry, rasping, barely a whisper. Said my name. My full name. Then it said my mother's maiden name. Then it recited the address of the house I grew up in, a house we left over 15 years ago. I didn't respond. Couldn't. The voice didn't sound human. It was like several voices overlapping, some high-pitched, some impossibly low, talking through layers of static and wind. Then it said something that made my blood turn to ice. You've seen room 6. It saw you too. I slammed the receiver down so hard it cracked the plastic casing. My heart was pounding, my throat dry, and every hair on my body stood on end. The phone didn't ring again that night, but I didn't sleep either. After that call, everything began to unravel. The next night, I saw bloody footprints appear across the lobby floor. They were fresh, wet and glistening, and they led from the front door to the vending machine where they stopped. No one had come in. The cameras showed nothing. Just me standing there, staring at prints that shouldn't exist. Around 3:10 a.m., I heard a humming sound. Soft, feminine. A lullaby like something a mother might sing to a child. It came from behind the vending machines. When I got closer, the humming stopped abruptly, replaced by a faint gasp, like someone was holding their breath in the dark. I shone my flashlight behind the machine, nothing but wires and dust. But the air was cold. Too cold. The following nights blurred into a waking nightmare. Lights flickered without reason. My reflection in the window would sometimes move slower than me, as if it were lagging behind. Once I saw it smile when I wasn't smiling. The worst moment came a few days later. I was nodding off at the desk, somewhere around 3 a.m., when the lobby phone rang again. I didn't answer this time. I just stared at it, and that's when I noticed the shadows on the walls were wrong. They weren't following the light fixtures. They were moving on their own. Stretching. Crawling. Reaching across the walls like hands looking for something to grab. I blinked and everything looked normal again. But the feeling lingered, like I was being watched from every angle at once. I told Darryl what had been happening. He listened in silence, leaning against the wall like none of it surprised him. When I finished, he looked at the phone and muttered, "You picked it up, didn't you?" I didn't answer. He didn't need me to. "That phone don't call out," he said. "It only answers. And the thing on the other end, it don't forget who speaks to it." "What is it?" I asked. He shook his head slowly. "Doesn't matter. You listened. That's enough." I tried not to let it affect me, but something had changed after the call. My thoughts got darker. My dreams more vivid. I started hearing voices murmuring behind the walls, whispering phrases I didn't understand in a language that didn't sound real. Sometimes, guests would complain about noises too. A woman told me she heard a child crying from the vents all night. A man in room 4 said someone knocked on his window at 3:06 a.m. His room was on the second floor with no balcony. I became a different person, paranoid, withdrawn. I stopped answering the phone, unplugged it completely. But even disconnected, it would sometimes ring, faint and distant, like the echo of a memory. One night, I walked past the break room and saw something that nearly made me collapse. The security monitors were showing footage from the lobby, but the timestamp said 3:01 a.m. On the screen I was answering the phone, but in the footage I was wearing different clothes. My face was pale, sickly, my eyes darker than usual. As I watched, my doppelganger slowly looked into the security camera and smiled. I don't remember doing that. Now, I don't sit at the front desk past 2:55 a.m. I leave, walk laps around the parking lot, or hide in the supply closet. I don't trust the mirrors. I don't trust the silence. And most of all, I don't trust the phone. Because the thing on the other end of the line is still waiting. And I know deep in my bones that it's not done with me yet. The laundry room door creaked open just after dawn on my 10th shift. No one had touched it. No breeze. No guests in sight. It just slowly swung open as if something had decided it was time. I stared at it from behind the front desk, heart pounding, hands clenched tight beneath the counter. I remembered the final line from that handwritten note I found on day one: never go into the laundry room after sunrise. I had followed it religiously until now. But something about the way that door opened, it wasn't just a warning. It was an invitation. I told myself I was only going to close it. Just walk up, shut it, and go back to pretending this place wasn't crawling with things that didn't belong in the world. But the closer I got, the colder the air became. It was sharp, almost metallic, like the inside of a freezer soaked in rust. I reached out to pull the door shut, and something moved in the darkness behind it. A staircase. That wasn't supposed to be there. The laundry room at Whispering Pines was always just a closet-sized space. 2 washers, 1 dryer, a broken vending machine, and piles of forgotten linen. But now, behind the machines, the wall had cracked open like a mouth. A spiral staircase made of stone led down into pure blackness. I should have run. Instead, I stepped inside and descended. Each step groaned under my feet. The air grew heavier with every turn of the stairs, pressing against my chest like invisible hands. I couldn't hear my footsteps anymore. Just the sound of something distant, steady, wet, rhythmic. Like a heartbeat echoing through the walls. When I finally reached the bottom, I found a room no bigger than a cellar. But it felt ancient. The walls were lined with shelves and each one was packed with objects, items that shouldn't have been there. A blood-stained baseball cap. A broken wristwatch ticking backward. A half-burned ID card with no photo. Each shelf had a name etched into the wood with a date underneath it. Some were recent. Some were decades old. I recognized one of the names, Joseph L. Carter. That was the man I checked into room 6 on my first night. The one who vanished. His date read, March 17, 2023, 12:17 a.m. My hands began to shake. There were dozens more. In the center of the room was a crude shrine. Pictures, old motel keys, scraps of clothing. But what chilled me to the core were the jars. Dozens of them, sealed tight, and each one contained eyes. Human eyes. Some were wide open in terror. Others seemed to float in peaceful stillness. Every jar was labeled. One of them had my name. That's when I knew I wasn't supposed to find this place. Or maybe I was always meant to. I backed away, bumping into something solid. I turned, expecting a wall. But it was a figure. Not quite human. Its skin looked stretched too tight over its bones, face hollow, teeth far too many for its mouth. It didn't move. Just stood there, watching me with sockets that dripped black fluid. Behind it, others began to emerge from the walls, dozens of them. Silent. Watching. Waiting. I ran. Up the stairs. Through the laundry room. Down the hall. I didn't stop until I was outside, gasping for air under the rising sun. Daryl was already there. Smoking a cigarette by the ice machine like he had been expecting me. He didn't look surprised. Just disappointed. You went in, he said. I couldn't speak. He shook his head slowly. You weren't ready. You saw too much. Now you've got a choice. I blinked, confused, trembling. Choice. He nodded. Either you leave, and they'll follow you. Or you stay and work with them. I didn't understand at first. But the moment he said they, I felt it. That presence. Behind me. Inside me. Whispering promises I couldn't comprehend. I wanted to run. I wanted to escape. But part of me knew deep down that I wouldn't get far. People don't just quit Whispering Pines. Not after they see what's buried beneath it. Not after they answer the 3 a.m. call. Not after they break the rules. So I stayed. Daryl trained me after that, taught me which rooms to avoid, which guests weren't really guests, how to reset the cameras before morning. I learned to recognize the signs. When the sky above the motel turned a shade too dark, when the power flickered in patterns, when the shadows cast by empty hallways didn't match the light source. And now I make the rules. I'm the one who leaves the notes. I'm the one who tells new receptionists to never answer the phone, never go in the laundry room, never check anyone into room 6 after midnight. And when they break those rules, well, they either become part of the motel like I did, or they end up on a shelf downstairs, labeled and forgotten.